can be found on our district website about our YouTube channel. This meeting is now called to order. It is November 15th, 2023. The time is 6:30 p.m. Our mission is to provide a safe and caring climate and culture in which we engage, inspire, educate, prepare, and empower all learners in partnership with their surrounding community to be successful in today's and tomorrow's society. Mr. Dolhart, can you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And then when you're ready, can you please call roll?
I can. Scott Andresen,
Here.
Natalie Copeland, Al Dahlgren,
Here.
Zach Doralt is here, Shannon Haas,
Here.
Monica Shigeru Sports, and following board members. Three of you, all right. Following board members are not present, Heather Weems. The following cabinet members and staff are present at the District Administration Office. Superintendent Dr. Lori Putnam, Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Education Dr. Jason Harris, Assistant Superintendent of PK5 Education Nikki Hansen, Assistant Superintendent of E12 Education Services Dr. Mike Rivard, Executive Director of Community Education Adam Holm, Executive Director of Finance and Business Services Amy Scalrud, Executive Director of Human Resources and Labor Relations Tracy Flynn Bowe, Executive Director of Operations Gary Ganji, Media Technicians Paul Novak and Gordy Scott, and custodian on site is Evan Voss.
Okay, thank you. Then I'm looking for a motion to approve tonight's Board of Education meeting agenda.
So move.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. I have a motion by Scott, a second by Monica. Zach, can you call vote?
And Monica Shigeru Sports.
Yes.
Shannon Haas.
Yes.
Zach Dorholz, yes. Al Dahlgren.
Yes.
Natalie Copeland.
Yes.
Scott Andresen.
Yes.
Thank you. And then we have the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of non-controversial items that the board adopts routinely without debate. Any single member may remove an item from the consent agenda by requesting removal at the time the consent agenda is moved for adoption. On tonight's consent agenda, item A, approval of minutes from October 4th, 2023 and October 18th, 2023. Item B, approval of bills and other financial transactions in the grand total amount of $4,301,827.04. Item C, approval of personnel staff changes. Item D, acceptance of grant awards and donations. Item E, bid award, McKinley addition. And item F, call for bids, Apollo roof replacement. At this time, does any board member wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Okay, then looking for a motion to adopt the consent agenda as read.
So move.
Second.
I have a motion and a motion by Scott, a second by Natalie. Zach, can you please call roll?
Natalie Copeland.
Yes.
Scott Andresen.
Yes.
Monica Shigeru Sports. Shannon Haas.
Yes.
Zach Dorholz, yes. Al Dahlgren.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, first up tonight, we have one informational item. It is the Katherine Johnson Education Center School Presentation presented by Brenda Blackmore, Director of Alternative Programs, KJEC. Welcome, Brenda. Glad to have you.
Ready? All right. Okay. Good evening. My name is Brenda Blackmore, and I am the Director of the Alternative Programs and the Principal at the Katherine Johnson Education Center. So tonight I'm going to share a little bit about our program and our staff. As I go through, Katherine Johnson, just to explain a little bit, is an alternative education program, often referred to as a Setting 4. Setting 4 designates a separate site program in which students are receiving special education services based on the individual education plan without the presence of non-disabled students. Hang on one second here. Students access Catherine Johnson through the special education process, and they are referred by their individual education teams from their home schools. Typically, students are referred if they display significant emotional, behavioral, or mental health needs. This is our elementary program staff. They currently serve 24 students in grades K through 5. In this program, we serve up to 6 students per classroom. What makes this program really unique is that the staff are able to focus on the social and emotional needs of students. By providing them with immediate feedback and support, students participate in small group and individual sessions with our elementary counselor, where they focus on helping students to gain the skills in regulating their actions and emotions, which in turn leads to increased control and problem-solving abilities. Ultimately, this serves our students in a way that increases school attendance and academic success, as students' ultimate goal is to return to their home schools. This is our middle school team. They currently have an enrollment of 30 students with class sizes of 8 to 10 students. The middle school program supports students' development through a shared understanding that education for adolescents must be responsive, challenging, empowering, equitable, and engaging. This team of educators has developed a school environment that is welcoming, inclusive, and affirming. Every student's academic and personal development is guided by a caring adult through a robust check-in and check-out program. This team has designated a WIN class, which is a What I Need class, that meets daily and has implemented strong social emotional learning as a core component and is designed to help students learn the social skills needed to be successful in school and in the community. The high school program currently serves students in grades 9 through 12. The goal of our high school program is to support students in obtaining the credits they needed toward graduation. This focus has been designed to help students meet their individual goals of transitioning back to mainstream schools, learning the skills to obtain consistent employment, and to become a positive member of the community. The high school team has implemented a work experience program that provides students with experiences in the community through service learning projects, supportive work environments on and off campus, as well as learning skills to help support in other programs within our school. This year, our high school teams have focused on helping students to participate in restorative practices. The skills that students are learning are based on building positive relationships, taking responsibility for individual actions, and helping each other to repair harm, and for building support for each other within the school system. Later in this presentation, you'll meet Brian. Brian is our most recent, or will be our most recent graduate, and is a success story as he has participated in this program for multiple years. He's met his goals and is employed in the community. And then our fourth program at this site is the InStep program. InStep serves students ages 18 to 21 who continue to show needs in developing their work skills. Typically, students who access this program have been identified by their IEP teams as students requiring additional time in the program to develop skills. The InStep program provides students with small classes, job skill training on and off site, and students continue to learn independent living skills as well as rec and leisure skills. We currently have job sites with the following businesses. We work at Crafts Direct, House of Pizza, both in St. Cloud and Sartell, Don Robinson Motors, Discovery Community School, and Ultra Durable Technologies. We currently have job crews that do jobs on site within our building also. So this year, our students in partnership with InStep and the high school have started an a la carte where students and staff can purchase snacks in the afternoon. They have further developed their job site into adding water cart Wednesdays and then a coffee cart on Fridays. Staff and students can purchase flavored water, coffee, tea, or hot chocolate. These activities help our students to learn and practice their communication skills, their preparation and planning for the water cart, as well as to learn how to take inventory, make purchases, and account for the cost of running the service. The Katherine Johnson Education Center's continuous improvement goals support the district strategic plan. Every program located at Katherine Johnson has designated interventions and lessons that focus and support our SIP goals. Positive climate and culture is an area that our teams feel very strong about as it supports staff and students. The team creates opportunities to help students to build relationships with each other and the staff. Providing opportunities for our students to be successful academically and socially is priority one. Our PBIS team takes the lead and provides multiple opportunities for students and staff to see the good in each other. Teachers identify a student of the month from each program, and in turn, students help to identify those staff that they feel support them and award them with one of 2 orange frogs, playfully named Snoop Frog and Lily Pad. Focus objective 2 is on our specific first instruction. Our elementary team is currently focusing on literacy and math. This is designed to help students make gains in these core areas. Our secondary staff are focused on implementation of the core curriculum in all areas and modifying the instruction per the individual student plans. Our focus this year is on ensuring students make academic progress as monitored through progress monitoring tools such as FastBridge and STAR. We also have focused on our summative and formative assessments, using that data to provide feedback to students. In this program, we also teach behavioral skills, which is a part of our daily schedule. We are in the early stages of implementing a strong social emotional program created in partnership with professionals and educators designed to help students to connect with their feelings and take on the opportunity to process and internalize their emotions. This is done through a series of modules and educator guides that help teachers and students to learn and understand leveled vocabulary and topics that directly affect students at each level. Our third goal is about implementing systems for assessing the effectiveness and alignment of programs and initiatives. We are creating ways to help students to meet their transition goals through a focus on hands-on learning and accessing our PAYS Lab. The PAYS Lab is a practical assessment exploration system and simulated work assessment and hands-on curriculum lab where students can learn by doing in a structured environment. This helps our students to gain a basic understanding of their strengths and interests as they explore the PAYS materials. Career and post-secondary education has been one of our focuses this year because we felt a need in our high school program for our students to have access to what's next after they have graduated. So we are in the stages of expanding our career explorations through a partnership with our InStep program and the use of the PAYS Lab, as previously noted. We're also gaining access to Zello, which is an online program designed to help students learn more about their future goals. And we're hoping to develop programming that helps our students to identify post-secondary options. Family engagement is a strong component of our school community. Opportunities for our families to come in and engage with school staff and our school community is a priority. Besides our open house, our team plans fun evenings for our families. We host a pizza and portfolio night where we can showcase our students' academic achievements. Family conferences and our end of the year picnic is also a time when we can engage our families and ensure accomplishments of our students. Other ways we engage our family is through our monthly newsletters, family engagement opportunities such as surveying families to gain an understanding for how we continue to build opportunities for our students. And now I invite you to enjoy a small video that showcases our high school program.
The InStep program has been using the PAYS Lab for a year and a half. We have incorporated that with our high school students at this point, and some of our kids come in and are learning a variety of different jobs that the PAYS Lab has to offer. So a little bit about the PAYS Lab. It's called the Practical Assessment Exploration System. And our PAYS Lab was purchased 3 years ago. And it is so awesome that our Katherine Johnson Education Center students are able to access work experience that is provided with the PAYS Lab. It's all kinds of hands-on activities. It just provides a wide variety of jobs and job tasks that are across the board. The coffee cart has started, and it's been a couple years now, where the InStep students have coffee. Last year it was mostly staff that would come and purchase a coffee, and the InStep students could use their social skills, please, thank you, money skills. So it's been really cool for the staff and student interaction. But now, as we're a year established into the Katherine Johnson building, kids from other programs are able to access the coffee cart also. Kids from the high school will come down and grab a coffee and then help our students with the math. So it's pretty cool to see across the board. When we started our work experience class at the beginning of the fall, we were up in the Flex Lab, and that has the big Imagine sign. And so we were brainstorming about all the things that Katherine Johnson could do. So work experience class is A and B. The A, young adults have jobs and job experience. So some of those young adults are working in the community. Some work at Chipotle, like Brian, for example.
I work 16 hours a week at Chipotle because it's like fast paced, and you gotta keep up, really, because people want their food. I enjoy working better than being in class, like way better.
We work on things that arise on the job. What are some skills that we need to have, soft skills, hard skills, working on our resumes, working on filling out applications, and fake interviews. It's like multi-levels of directions and things that they have to get organized for to start their job. Then they have a list of things like I'm ready for my job, I'm not ready for my job, I need a little clarification. So it teaches them to ask questions, advocate for themselves, and task completion. We work with each individual kid and what they like or what they want to do. Everybody has a say in what happens around here, and they feel that they're heard and that they're valued.
I graduate at the end of the semester, coming up in December. I imagine in graduation I'll be doing art full-time. Not that I'm not doing it full-time, but like, it's not a career yet. That door hasn't been opened yet. But my foot's there for sure. Well, what I love about art so much is how it can be like twisted for everybody. Like it can be different for everyone. It's not just like one thing, you know? It's pretty fluid. Makes me feel like I'm like working towards the future. Like investing, kinda. It's weird.
Imagine.
We did. Sorry. They went through Imagine That, Imagine That, Imagine That. Oh, I apologize. Okay. So thank you. Is there any questions?
Anybody have any questions or comments? Scott?
I toured your school during open house. I was very impressed. One of the things that I found quite interesting was the PAYS Lab. And you seem to be doing something for work experience. Tell me a little more about that.
Well, with our high school program, we have found over the last couple years, it is the second year that I've had the high school program. I've been previously focused on middle school. So now having everybody together, we wanted to figure out ways that we could bring everybody together and use all the, everything we have in our programs to meet the needs of kids. And so lots of our high schoolers come to school with jobs. And so we want to be able to support them in identifying what it is that they want to do in their futures and supporting them, you know, on the job with the skills that we can teach them at school to positively reinforce everything they're learning so that they can take what they're learning with us and apply it out in the community.
Um, is self-employment something that you can teach in your school, or is that beyond them?
Are you referring to his artwork?
Well,
But what Brian was showing you in that video was some of the artwork that he currently does. That's something he'd like to do in his future. But self-employment, like nothing is off the table. We try and encourage kids to look into who they are and what they want to do in their future.
okay. I was thinking at one time there's a program called Junior Achievement that had the students set up their own business and make a product, market the product, assemble the product. Have you had any experience with that at all?
Not recently, but I know that's one of the things our students would like to do. So that's why we're providing them some opportunities through the coffee cart to at least get them thinking about what they might want to do.
Okay. I was very impressed with your student-teacher ratios. Wow. I wish we could do that for our whole school system. Thank you very much.
Okay, anybody else? All right. Well, thank you very much, Brenda. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, then we're moving on to our discussion and action section. First up, we have the audit report presented by Nancy Schultenberg from Bergen KDV. I don't know if I left a syllable out of your last name, sorry. Okay.
Perfect. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for giving me some time to go over the results of our audit. Some of you have heard me already, so I apologize for that. But for those of you that haven't, we'll get started. I'm going to, looks like we're at the end of the presentation here. We could start there. Couple more. There we go. All right, so I'm going to start my presentation talking about all of the communications that we issue as part of the audit. And the most important to summarize on this slide is the independent auditor's report. And if you want to read that in detail, you'll find that in the front of your financial statement document. Basically, in summary though, it talks about responsibilities for an audit, talks about the standards that we use, some of the things that we go through in the audit, and various levels of assurance. But most important is going to be the opinion. And we're issuing an unmodified opinion this year, which is the best that we as your auditors can offer. And it is an indication that the financial statements are fairly stated based on the results of our audit. And then in addition to that letter, we have several other communications that are in the back of your financial statement document. First of all, we have a report in accordance with government auditing standards. These standards are required for all school districts in the state of Minnesota, as outlined in Minnesota state statute. And it requires us as auditors to look closer at internal control and also compliance with laws, regulations, contracts, and grants. We do have one internal control finding, and that is the lack of segregation of accounting duties. That is not new for St. Cloud and not at all unusual for districts across the state. Just due to the way your business office operates and some of the overlapping duties that are there. We did not have any non-compliance that we noted related to those standards. And then we have our single audit. So this is the work that we do related to your federal funding. So we tested 3 programs this year. We took a look at Title I, we took a look at those COVID recovery funds, and then we also looked at the Education Stabilization Funds, or the ESSER funds, for this year. Based on our work related to that, we are giving an unmodified opinion on compliance, so nothing that we noted related to compliance, and also no findings as it relates to the internal control surrounding that compliance. And then finally, our last official letter deals with Minnesota state statute. So we look through 7 broad categories of legal compliance as directed by the state auditor's office. And based on our work there, we also did not note any instances of non-compliance. So the one written finding overall for the audit. And then we have a communication letter that has financial analysis, which I will cover tonight. It has required communication, which are things that we need to put in writing to you as the governing board. It would be our tool if we had any difficulties, disagreements, anything significant that we uncovered. Happy to report that nothing strays from our standard language in that area. And then in the back of that document, there's a legislative summary from the last session and also some emerging issues, new accounting standards that seem to happen on an annual basis. So more work for Amy and team. All right, moving then to the financial analysis portion, starting with the basic formula allowance for general education aid. This is your largest funding source. So what we're showing you here is just the basic formula allowance that all districts receive on a per student basis. 2023, you have a 2% increase that you received, and 2024 that you're operating in currently will be 4% and then back down to 2% projected for 2025. The other part of calculating your general education aid is your students. So we have a couple of charts on this page, the top one being the residents of the district. So these are all the students attending a public school in the St. Cloud area school district boundaries. That number was up just slightly, about 14 students overall, and has been very consistent when you look at the 5 years presented here. The bottom chart shows the ADM served. So these are the students that actually attended in your buildings. That number has been decreasing and did decrease about 57 students for 2023. Same information in a graphical format, and you can see the relative stability that you've had, especially in the last 3 years, 2021, 22, and 23, pretty flat in the overall resident category and the students served. What you see here are the weighting factors. So we take those ADM served, weight them by grade level, with the 7 through 12 students receiving 20% more than the rest. And then we factor in open enrollment, and that is the number that you are receiving general education aid based on. And that's what you see in the 2 charts here. The top portion starts with your residents, shows those residents going elsewhere, the non-residents coming in, to give you an overall adjusted pupil unit number. That's down about 0.8%. So again, relatively stable year over year. And that equates to 79 students overall. And then the bottom, you can see where those students are coming from. The regular instruction obviously being the largest portion, and then you have some extended time on the bottom there. So just under 10,000 for the year. Same information again in a graphical format, showing the limited number of non-residents that the district has coming in, and again, that relative stability for the last 3 years, but an overall decrease in the 5 years presented. Moving then to some actual dollar amounts, starting with the sources of revenue in your general fund. Overall, in the general fund, revenues were up about 2.3% or $3.8 million. And there were some changes in each of the categories that we have segregated there. Local property taxes, pretty similar between 22 and 23. The state sources up about $1 million. That was an increase in the general education aid related to the formula allowance and increased compensatory revenue in 2023, offset by the decrease in the students that you served. Federal sources, you can see that has been on a steady incline since 2021 with all of the COVID-related funds that the district has received, up about $1.2 million for the year. There was an HVAC project at Talahi that came out of the ESSER funds during the year, so you see an increase there. And then the other category, which includes your local sources, interest revenues, those types of things, that is also up. That's the largest increase at $1.3 million. Related to some increased E-rate, related to a project, additional third-party billings, and also improved investment earnings compared to 2022. Once again, we like to put things in charts and graphs because everybody looks at things differently. So same information in that graphical format. And I think something to take away from this is the jump up in revenues that you see in 22 and 23 related to COVID funds. Those will fall back off in future years, so something to be aware of. And then the middle, the green portion there, is the state sources. So you can see the district's heavy reliance on what is going on at the state of Minnesota. That makes up 68% of your total revenues for the general fund. The next slide takes a look at your gross tax levies. Those did increase for fiscal 23, which will be recognized as revenue in fiscal 24, a year lag on the tax levy. And the increase that you see came in the debt service area with the increasing debt payment requirements. If you compare 21 to 22, you can see that those are relatively flat. And 22 is the year that was recognized in 23. Switching gears then to your expenditures, we have a pie chart here with the total expenditures by function for 2023. You can see that you are spending the greatest portion of your funds directly on education. So those instructional categories, special education, vocational, and regular instruction, making up 59% of the total. And then in this chart, we have a 5-year perspective for the expenditures similar to the revenues, showing those functions again at a dollar amount rather than the percentages. So overall, up about $4.5 million or 2.8%, primarily related to contractual increases with salaries and benefits, cost of living increases, step and lane changes, all of those things contributing to more expenditures on an annual basis. A couple of categories to note, you can see the special education instruction up pretty significantly, increased positions just based on increased needs in that category. And then the pupil support services, higher transportation costs than the previous year, contributing to the increase there. Another slide that takes a look at those expenditures in a little different format on a per student served basis. So this is compared to those ADMs served and the expenditures in the general fund. The top chart shows total for the general fund and gives you a comparison through 2022 with the statewide average. So that you can see you've traditionally been above that state average on a per student basis, and you did have an increase in 2023 with that increase in expenditures and the decrease in students. The bottom portion of this chart does give you the district for 2022 along with the state averages by category, and then the district for 2023. Again, an increase for the year and over the state averages. Areas that jump out as being significantly over special education. That's not surprising to the district at all. And then sites and buildings is a tough one because there's a lot of projects that vary district by district. So to compare that one is a little bit difficult. There's too many pieces in that part. The slide that you're seeing now takes a look at the general fund, very high level snapshot at the end of each of the last fiscal years. So we talked about the increase in revenues, the increase in expenditures. You did have excess expenditures in 2023, resulting in a decrease of about $500,000 in your fund balance. The bottom portion of this chart does show you all the components of fund balance, and you can see that the largest change came in that non-spendable category. So those are prepaid items, things that have already been purchased for future years. So those funds are no longer available for spending at your discretion. Then we have all of the restrictions. Those are directly mandated by state statute. So there's specific revenue streams to be spent on specific items. Those are the residual amounts at year end. And then finally, your unassigned is 2 numbers up from the very bottom right-hand corner. That did increase just slightly for the year and represents about 10.5% of your expenditures based on 2023 levels. And your policy does outline a minimum of 10, so you are in compliance with that policy at year end. Another way that we like to look at fund balance is the unrestricted fund balance, which includes assignments and the non-spendable category compared to unrestricted expenditures. So the Department of Education calculates this for us and gives us the ability to compare to state averages in this area as well. So you can see that 22 and 23 very flat for the St. Cloud School District and slightly below state averages for each of the years that we're looking at here. And the state average does include all traditional districts. There is no discretion on size there. So moving then to the food service fund. a bit of a change in operations in the food service fund in 2022 compared to 2023. So 2022, you had the all free meals federally reimbursed at a higher rate. And then 2023, you went back to the traditional free and reduced programming. So you had a reduction in the reimbursements from the federal government and back to some fees for meals served. So your revenues were down about $700,000 for the year. On the other side of things, expenditures increased. You had contractual increases with salaries and benefits. You had also inflation related to food costs, milk costs, those types of things. So a pretty sizable increase in your expenditures. You did also purchase some equipment with some of the funds in that fund during 2023. So overall, excess expenditures of $157,000. You do still have about 31% of expenditures in the fund balance at year end. One last fund, your community service fund. Revenues relatively flat from 22 to 23, down about $52,000, primarily related to the 2022 year being the last year of the federal COVID-related ABE and school-age care funds. And then your expenditures were up, again, contractual increases for staff. There were some additional staffing positions for the Preschool for Success program and also increased transportation costs related to preschool. When we look at that, you did have expenditures for the year, but all of your categories of fund balance as segregated as required by state law in a positive position at year end. And for each of the 5 years that we're looking at here. So appears to be operating appropriately and charging fees and gaining revenues to cover costs. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions or comments? Scott?
Fund balance, the board at one time set a 10% fund balance requirement. Can you explain that to us?
As far as what that means?
What it means, and are we doing better or worse?
Oh, okay, sure. So at the end of the year, we'll go back a couple slides. This one. So if you look 2 numbers up from the bottom, that's your unassigned category. So that's about 10.5% of expenditures. So based on that, you are in compliance with that 10% minimum policy. And I don't remember, Amy, is it around budgeted expenditures or actual expenditures? Okay, so then it's a straight calculation that you are at 10.5% with a minimum set by the board of 10%.
So we're doing good.
You're in compliance with your policy.
That's nice to hear.
Yes.
Nancy, you may not know the answer to this, but my question is, how will the Central Minnesota Virtual Academy affect our ADM numbers?
As
Well,
far as,
Will virtual students be counting as the same as a student? And would students that would be served outside of our district that enroll in Central Minnesota, would that be a non-resident student served, or?
it looks like Amy's going to answer that question for me.
Yes, so those would generate a 1.0 ADM if they're enrolled full-time, just like an in-person student would. If they're enrolling from an outside district, then yes, you would see on that chart where it showed pupils coming in, it would show as part of that net gain to the district where we're serving a non-resident.
We
What
may
if
want to
they're-
add a category next year.
Possibly, it's a site code within, so, when we get to next year, we can, decide if we want to list that separately, or if that just becomes, part of the overall
Right.
increase, just like we would with any other site. We don't generally decipher any other site separately, but certainly we would be able to pull how many ADMs that's generating.
Okay, and if they're outside the district and enrolling in, say, 1 or 2 classes in?
So we do not allow outside of the district to enroll in 1 or 2 classes, if
Yeah.
you're correct.
But if we allowed that,
So that gets a little messy. You end up usually having to do a tuition agreement because only one school can generate the revenue. So If we get to that point, which again, we're not at that point right now, our preference is to say if there's a student who doesn't reside in the district and they want to have that as an option, that they enroll with us full-time for that option. Or if they want part in-person, they can certainly have in-person classes at, either of our schools under current open enrollment policy. So right now, we don't allow that. But again, there is the ability to do that within the approved guidelines from MDE, but you have to have each scenario kind of partnered with the district in terms of who's going to generate the revenue, and then what do we bill back for the time that they're attending the other district.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay, this is an action item. Administration recommends acceptance of the audit reports for 2022, 2023. Would anybody like?
I would move that we accept the audit report for 2022, 2023.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Al, a second by Monica. Zach, can you call vote?
Natalie Copeland,
Yes.
Monica Shigeru Schwartz,
Yes.
Scott Andresen,
Yes.
Zach Dorholtz, yes. Shannon Haas.
Yes.
Al Dahlgren.
Yes.
Thank you, Nancy.
Yep, thank you.
Appreciate it again. Okay, moving on to our next action item. We have new course proposals being presented by Dr. Jason Harris, Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Education.
Let me just make sure I got the right. I was like the last presenter, I was at the end. So, good evening, Chair Haas, Superintendent Putnam, school board members. We have the high school new course proposals update tonight. I'm here with Shannon Avinson, Director of Secondary Education, and my new team member this year. So we had some learning around the new course proposal. Tonight, we're going to review the process for course proposals. We're going to give an update on the courses approved the last 2 years, and then share the courses that were approved for this year. The new course proposal process, all teachers were notified September 15th through vertical teams. That's when all departments get together and they got a chance to talk about within their departments, there are opportunities to offer new course proposals. On September 15th, the notebook communication, we communicate that to all district staff weekly, so they were notified that way. The due date for the new course proposals were October 18th. This year, we had a secondary team that reviewed the new course proposals, teachers, SEA president, administrators, district administrators, and coordinators. Also within that process, the District Advisory Committee shared feedback on advanced placement and college in the schools, and the impacted departments were communicated on the feedback around the course proposals, and then the final recommendations were reviewed by the Director of Secondary Education, high school principals, myself, and Superintendent Putnam.
I think there we go. All right. So I'm just going to give an update on the courses that were approved last fall. As you can see, we had Introduction to Nails, Intermediate Nails, and Advanced Nails. Those numbers, we started at Tech, and you'll see trimester 1. So we started these courses at Tech, and that was due to the process to get it up and going through the Minnesota Board of Cosmetology. And note 18 trimester 1 and 14 in another section, and those classes are capped at 20 due to the Minnesota Board of Cosmetology, so those numbers are pretty good. And then we rolled it over, Introduction into Nails, second trimester, we started over at Apollo, and we had 8 and 17 students that are currently going to be enrolled in that course. Of course, students for Introduction to Nails, trimester 2, Intermediate Nails, and Advanced Nails, those numbers might grow as students learn about the program as well. So we're excited about that. And so our advanced nails will be offered third trimester only because those courses are sequential. Unfortunately, we did not have any students enroll in the new course Guitar Ensemble. And we also did not have enough students enroll in Textile Design Mathematics, so they are not on the schedule currently. And then additionally, we had low numbers initially right now for law enforcement and public safety too. And so we are taking a look at those numbers and figuring out an alternative for that course as well. But they are in the registration course guide and they will stay in there for next year. Another thing to note is that we do have an articulated agreement with Atelier Academy in Hopkins, so our students who are taking those nail courses will get their hours towards that institute if they choose to go there. And we're currently trying to work on some local ones as well. It's just they're pretty busy at this time of year, so we're hoping to get articulated agreements with them as well. Courses that were approved in fall of 2022, just some numbers here as well. Analytic and financial algebra at Apollo, 40 students and 36 students this year. And then at Tech, you can see those numbers have grown from 50 the first year and 62 in this school year. And then also the course Video Game Literature, Communication and Composition. That was submitted by a Tech teacher, so that's why it's offered only at Tech right now. And in the 22-23 school year, 22 students. And then this year we have 29 that are currently enrolled. All right, courses that were approved for the 24-25 school year, and that will be going into the course registration book. One course is AP Economics with Government Embedded. That is a 3-trimester course that's going to allow students to meet both senior social requirements in economics and government through that course. And what we'll do is allow for maximizing the year of AP learning prior to that AP exam in May. And that is also able to be taught at both Tech and Apollo. And then also LA Expanding. This is an optional course for our multilingual students who would benefit from a sheltered language arts class that's aligned to ELA standards, but also scaffolded at an appropriate language level. Again, that's an optional class, and it might be for students who maybe have failed a language arts course or just feel like they're not quite ready to jump into a co-taught class at this time. And we are, that one will be a pilot for the school year, and we'll analyze data around that. All right, some really great discussions, and as Jason said, I'm new to my role, so a lot of learning for me around this as well. But we are offering currently 22 AP classes between Tech and Apollo. We also, or at both Tech and Apollo, I should say. It does not mean that we have students enrolled in every single one of those courses, but they are in our course guide, and we have a number of those classes that are running. With AP classes, they do take an AP exam in May. There is no GPA requirement for students to take an AP class. And colleges determine their acceptance criteria. So some colleges might require a 5, some might require a 4, some might require a 3. It varies. And there are a few pretty elite colleges that do not accept that, but that's pretty rare. And then college in the high schools, it's also known as Huskies in the high schools. We are currently offering 6 courses, and they're offered at Tech and Apollo. And what happens with that is there's not an AP exam or one significant exam that they have to pass in order to get that college credit. If students successfully pass it with a C or higher, they would get that credit upon successful completion of the course. However, there is a GPA requirement to be in those classes, and that's set by SCSU, and that's 3.5 GPA for juniors, 3.0 for our seniors, and then of course that piece of passing successfully. And the reason I'm sharing this with you tonight is because that some of the courses that we did not approve at this time are CEIS courses, and they were courses that may have been competing with current AP courses. And so that's the discussion that we really kind of want to jump into and look at what do our students really want to take, what's going to benefit them the most. And so it's not that we won't consider having those courses in the future, but we just felt like there was a lot more data and a lot more information that we needed in order to really make the best decision around adding those courses at this time. And Jason's going to speak to that on the next slide as well.
Yeah, so the future next steps, we want to research the district and national data on college in the schools and AP courses, and then what considerations of impact for teacher qualifications and costs. We want to review other college credit options, PSEO, SCSU, SCTC, and explore additional online options. And then we want to develop a process to promote courses that align with our goal of every student graduating with post-secondary experience, and then establish a protocol for removing courses that have not been running due to lack of interest or enrollment and do not align with our priority. Questions?
Monica?
Thank you so much. So I am surprised you were saying that there is a guitar composition or some guitar part that did not get enrollment, but people were asking for it before. So what do you think that was the issue about that one?
The guitar one? I talked to our counselors about it, and we do, and that's part of the conversation about next steps, is we offer so many things that I think it's really challenging for students to choose. And so I don't think that there's a lack of interest in guitar. Our intro to guitar numbers are good, are pretty solid. It's just, I think what's challenging is there's a lot of graduation requirements, and there's only so many hours in the day to take those courses. And it could be because it's also a new course and students maybe just weren't aware of it quite yet.
I think that what you said about the students being overwhelmed makes sense. So if that is the case, how are you addressing that?
I think one way that we are going to be looking at addressing that is some of our courses could be dual credit. So you might be able to take an elective class in a CTE course and then credit that way. And so that's really some of the pieces that we're trying to explore to say, are there courses that we have dual credit for? I also think in meeting with a lot of our counselors who are leading that course registration process, they are really invested in having more individualized conversations with students and families. And I think it's some of our students don't know all the opportunities that we currently offer. So I think that's a big piece of it, is how do we get that information out there in a way that will engage students in really taking a look at our course registration and the options that they have.
Thank you. So those were my questions, but I do remain with a concern that I wanted to express very loud. When you are doing that part of the credits, I think that it sounds like a great idea. But I don't want to see our courses being diluted into it, or our credits to be able to be taken with something that will not explore creativity in the student in an artistic way, and also the possibility of socializing with others, which are specifically to the arts that do not come in other courses. And I'm really strongly looking for those skills and options and possibilities for students. More questions?
I think the only other thing that I would add is going back to what Shannon said, you only have 6 periods in a day. And then making sure kids have the education and their families of what course offerings are offered around interests. And what we see and with some of the courses is I can't take everything. And so how do we really sit down with students and families in a way that they have good information to make good, solid choices on course offerings and what their students enroll in?
Scott?
I'm kind of looking at the AP versus college and high school. The actual class that is being taught, could it fit into either AP or college and high school? I mean, is it the same class?
I think the main difference between them is there is a teacher licensure requirement for the college and the high schools that can be challenging for us. So it requires a master's in that content area. So that becomes the challenge because not every one of our teachers has a master's in that content area. So then I'd say that's probably the biggest difference that we've noticed, and that GPA requirement. The content really for CIS comes from, is in partnership with SCSU. And so, so yes, what we're seeing is there's an interest in teaching, AP US History and CIS US History, but we have, about 20 students in a particular AP class. And what we can't predict is if we offer that CIS course in the same year that we're offering that AP course, will pieces that we need to explore a little bit more deeply before we go down either path.
Okay. Let's say a student that normally would get an A in history takes an AP class and it gets a B. Is that going to impact his high school GPA?
Actually, our AP courses, students who enroll in AP courses, it's scaled for that. So it won't, in that case, it would not hurt that student in comparison to a student who might take the regular US History course or whatever course. And so they do get a GPA, I want to say, bump to some extent for taking those AP courses. So that there's almost an incentive to do so.
That's good to hear. I've known students that didn't make the college they wanted to because their GPAs have been bumped down. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So, do you know the reason why there's that GPA requirement from SCSU?
That is a great question, and one that we need to explore a little bit more. I know Jason
Yeah.
has something to say.
Right, so going back to what Scott asked, the requirements dictate a little bit. If I have to have a 3.5 in the college and the schools and I have no requirement for AP, we want kids to have all the pathways, but there's a barrier. And what we started to look at is, we just found out the University of Minnesota doesn't have a 3.5 grade requirement, right? And so that's something in our next steps of what we need to explore and really look at with our colleagues and our collaborative partners at SCSU to figure out what we need to do to create that, taking that barrier away. But right now it's a barrier.
And CIS is not weighted, just AP is weighted?
AP is weighted.
That's really funny then, that's a GPA requirement, but AP is not. And 3.5 is, I mean, for juniors, that's pretty darn good.
Right, and
You know, so
so
that really,
who does that affect, right? When you put
Right.
this barrier, it's not a pathway for everybody. And so
Right.
we got to work to, and that's our next steps of looking at what's taking place and how do we find some solutions around that.
you know, this is, so I'm on my third child taking AP classes now as a ninth grader for Milo, but it was a heavy learning curve for me to understand all of this as a parent, and then to look like, okay, where are you going to go to school, and what do you have to get a 3? If you go to U of M, you have to get a 3, but if you go over to an East Coast school, you have to get a 4. I mean, like, I wonder, as part of this, if we could put together a video or like, a one sheet or whatever for parents like this, but then also here's the considerations for advanced placement classes versus college in the schools, especially because SCSU, like if my kids were decided to go out of the state, that wouldn't transfer very well where advanced placement would, unless they were going to Harvard, like you said. And we looked up, I think it wasn't Harvard, but one of the Ivy League schools, and it was like, basically, don't even pretend like any of your AP is going to matter here. So, but for the most part, AP does, translate pretty well. But yeah, so I went to college, and so my kids aren't first generation, so I can kind of navigate that system. But yeah, maybe we can help parents with that, or even like an info night, or like a whatever, so that that's accessible to folks.
So both high schools, when student registration comes around in January, have those nights aligned right with conferences, when families are there to go over, here's the pathway, here are the options, here are the opportunities. It's just making sure we get the word out more to have this information, and kind of what you just stated about a quick one-pager of, here are the options for me. When I come to ninth grade, I can take AP geography, right? It's even going back to elementary school, I can get into young scholars. And so showing the pathways, I think, is helpful for families to make informed decisions. And I think that's something we just, last week, I did a presentation to the Somali Council and went over what does 63 credits look like? What are the requirements? And it was enlightening for us we have some work to do to help everybody understand what does 63 credits looks like, what's the advanced track to AP, and then what's the on and off ramps as students go through high school. And so I just think I'm learning in this new role a lot of things that we can do to make families have informed decisions. You want to share what college you went to, undergrad?
For me, he just learned I went to Concordia, yeah, heyo. But U of M really, I mean, so that's where both of my boys are gonna go, is U of M, and they take our AP. You know, it's a one-to-one. I think too, by junior and senior year, I'm like, y'all got it, you know, but then to figure out they have it, but then what does that mean as they go into college as a whole other step. So thank you for the work on that. I appreciate it.
If I'm a student, how can I suggest a new course? Are students involved in courses, and how do they do that?
I would say up until this year, I haven't been involved in the process, but I did not see that really being an intentional part of the process. And that's another piece and I think that's why that's reflected maybe in some courses that aren't up and running. Whereas you see it when, like the nail tech courses, there's interest, there's students who are passionate and excited about this different course. So that's definitely part of the next steps as well and even around the CIS and advanced placement, we really need student input around that to really gauge our next steps. Because I mean, you can offer all the things in the world, but really what we need to offer the things that our students are most passionate about and where their interest lies. So
Yeah, I think if we were communicating that we want to hear from them, I think that then that would engage them as well as their peers to say, hey, you know, what courses do we have, and kind of get a little bit of a buzz about that and excitement to know that new courses are coming and to intentionally look for them.
Yeah, I thought about that in the process. We want to get student voice in this somehow, right? Because they're living it every day. And so I know we have the platform of, what's our platform? Friday. Yeah, 742 Imagine. I think that's a way we could utilize that as we get ready for 24-25 student registration.
Thanks. My other question is the AP Economics and Government class, a full year?
a full year.
And is there a regular economics, government, two separate ones?
Correct.
But it's not AP, neither of them are AP, or they are
We do
AP?
currently offer an AP Economics, but we don't have any students currently enrolled in it. And so what we are doing instead is we'll offer AP Economics with Government embedded so that students can get both their standards in that one course, because both are required, AP or Economics and Government,
What grade? Is that
senior year typically.
senior year? Okay. Okay. Anybody else have any questions? I agree with Natalie that it's extremely complicated. I've lived it, and you know, through it, sitting in the front end of it in your first child, oh my gosh, I have no idea what you're telling me. And it's so, I imagine other parents are as well. And then once you go through it, you have a little bit of a better understanding, but it's complex.
It is complex. I am with you. I have one that's going PSEO through SETCC. I have one who did AP, one who has dabbled in CI. And so it's challenging because you you don't know if you have to fill out a form for this or if your signature. So I agree, some more parent information would be very valuable and a good next step.
All right, thank you very much. All right. Happily here, we have our next one, approval of tentative agreements. Oh, hold it back. That was an action item and we didn't approve that, did we? My bad, sorry. So, backing it up, this is, board action is required to approve the new course proposals for the 24, 25 school year. It's getting late. Do I have a motion for that? Want to repeat it probably? Okay. So motioning to, Scott motions to approve the new courses for the 24, 25 school year. Do I have a second? And a second by Zach. Zach, can you call vote? Yes.
Monica Segura Schwartz,
Yes.
Scott Andreessen,
Yes.
Natalie Copeland,
Yes.
Paul Dahlgren,
Yes.
Zach Dorrels, yes.
All right, thank you. Then we are going to approval of tentative agreements. Tracy Flynn Bowl presenting, she's Executive Director of Human Resources and Labor Relations.
Okay, good evening, Chair Hawes, Board Member, Superintendent Putnam. I'm really happy to be here to present more tentative agreements. The first one that we'll review is with the St. Cloud Administrators Association. St. Cloud Administrators Association is 19 administrators, which includes directors of many of our departments, as well as our licensed special education supervisors. Year one of the tentative agreement provides for $4,000 increase for all eligible directors, a $3,750 salary increase for eligible supervisors. We did some realignment of pay ranges and contract days within the unit, and you see those positions and pay ranges on the second page of your exhibit. And then we added the Juneteenth holiday for these staff. In year two, the increase is at $2,500 for eligible directors, $2,250 for supervisors, and then a one-time pay for a member that was at the salary cap and not making a salary advancement in the second year of $2,000. The total two-year cost of this settlement would be 6.37%. I'm looking for a motion to approve the contract with the St. Cloud Administrators Association.
Scott?
How many people are at the salary cap?
Just one will hit that in the second year.
Okay.
I move to approve.
And do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Monica and a second by Zach. Any further discussion?
I have a question. When we say realign contract days, what does realign mean?
For the director of elementary education, the contract, the previous contract was at 225 days. It was the only one that was out of alignment with this group, and so she was moved to 230 days.
But there is still one at 225?
That's the special ed supervisors. All of the directors are now at 230, and the special ed supervisors are at 225.
Okay, so there was one that was increased from 225 to 230.
Correct, yeah.
Are you good? Okay. Zach, can you call vote? I've long forgot who motioned in second, but I'm sure Jan has it, so.
Shannon Hawes,
Yes.
Zach Dorrels, yes. Paul Dahlgren,
Yes.
Natalie Copeland,
Yes.
Scott Andreessen,
Yes.
Monica Segura Schwartz.
Yes.
All right, and one more?
Okay, next we have the approval of executive contracts. You'll see from the exhibit that we have two different things happening. There are three of the executives that have two-year contracts that you'll be asked for approval tonight. Those are executive directors of operations, community education, and research, evaluation and assessment. And then the assistant superintendents, the executive director of HR and labor relations, and the executive director of finance and business services, you previously approved 23-24 contracts. So tonight you're just approving the change for 24-25. And so for the 2-year contracts for year 1, the proposed increase by the superintendent is a 4% increase in salaries, an increase in the performance pay from 2% to 3% of salary, increasing that single insurance contribution to $615 per month as is required because they're non-represented employees, adding $1,000 per year for doctorate or terminal degree for eligible executives, and then adding the Juneteenth day holiday. In year 2, for all of the executives, the proposed increase is 2%. The total 2-year cost for those with 2-year contracts is 6.5%, and the total 1-year cost for the 24-25 contracts is 1.91%. And I'm looking for a motion to approve the executive contracts.
So moved.
And do I have a second? I have a motion by Zach and a second by Monica. Any discussion? Natalie?
Just a curiosity, so why in this one is it percentage and then the last one it's dollar amount?
It depends on the group. Some of that is negotiations by the group that prefer the set amount versus percentages.
Okay, it's historically percentages for this one and they can change it if
It changes from
up to
cycle
every
to
group.
cycle.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks, Tracy.
Al?
Tracy, I have a question on the increase in the performance pay from 2% to 3%.
Yes.
It seems to me in the past, ever since I've been on the board, we've had a real difficult time with anything performance pay. It's been paid out 100% every year, as far as I know. I don't recall anyone ever not receiving 100% of their performance pay. And we have a real difficult time setting any performance standards to measure against. So why would we be increasing performance pay as a percentage of the contract? Why would that go there instead of to a different line within the contract? I mean, if the money is there and it's going to go to the contract, I understand that, but I'm just wondering why do we do that? Why are we making our lives more difficult?
Well, I think that has been the structure of these contracts for as long as I've been here. It was approved, that change in the 1-year contracts that the board approved earlier this year for the other executives, and so we were mirroring that same benefit. The superintendent has made it her I think, priority to make sure that she's setting rigorous goals and that everyone in the district, from the executives to teachers to all staff, are setting those goals in alignment with their SIP plans and with the strategic plan of the district. So I would say that our goal-setting process for executives throughout the organization have improved significantly, and I do think they provide the opportunity to measure that performance at the end of the year.
I don't think I've ever seen that happen. Okay.
Are we bringing the 1-year contracts into alignment with the 2-year contracts then?
Yeah, all of the executives will be treated the same, the 2% increase in salary and no other changes.
Oh, so that means the next session, they'll both be 2-year contracts?
Correct.
I'm going to go back to that. Is there going to be performance standards where this is your goal, and if you don't meet it, then you don't get your performance bonus?
Absolutely, there was last year. And as Tracy said, all of our executives, I sit with them in the fall, and we map out the goal.
Have we ever paid a partial?
In my last year, when I would be responsible for that decision, we did not. And I sat with the executives, as I said, in the fall, in the winter, we did a checkpoint, and then the spring.
Then are our goals meaningful, and is there a meaningful reason to have performance pay if we're always going to pay it at 100%?
Yeah, I think that right? Certainly depends on perspective. I think that we have, in partnership with executives and me, we have developed a process that is rigorous. It's aligned to our strategic plan, and we have checkpoints. And I think that if you ask members of this team, and if you ask my perspective, I have high accountability and high support. So I feel confident that the goals that they set are making a significant difference to our strategic plan. And when we get to the final, if people have not met them, then that's a different conversation. That did not happen last year. I would see no reason why that wouldn't happen this year, given the high accountability and high support, and we meet monthly. So I think if the question is about the rigor of the process, that's one thing. And I feel 100% confident in the rigor of our accountability and performance process, the evaluation process. If the question is about performance pay, just as it exists, right, as a part of a contract, I think that's a separate conversation. And Tracy answered that it's been a set part of this contract for years.
At 2%, but we're increasing, we're putting more emphasis on performance pay. And again, I've never seen performance pay used as a tool to, yeah, I mean, there's no danger of losing it. I've never seen anyone not get paid 100% of their performance pay. And if that's the case, let's pay it a salary and set high standards. But why are we breaking that out and putting it as a percentage, unless, is it something with how we cost things? I don't know why we're doing it. And it just, I know this probably isn't the place to bring it up, but it's the first time it popped out at me, so. And if I vote yes and then talk about it tomorrow, it's too late. So,
Natalie?
sorry.
I don't think you have to be sorry, Al. I think that's why we have a meeting. What makes sense to me about that is because of Dr. Putnam's, Superintendent Putnam's, from the beginning, the continuous improvement plans have just been hammered at everybody, across the board, and rightly so. I mean, that's. I understand what you're saying, that mostly performance pay when it comes to CEOs, not necessarily in this district, but, across the board is kind of like a given. You don't really have to do the things, but I think what I hear you saying, Dr. Putnam, is you have to do the things. And if you don't do the things, it's a larger conversation than just not getting your 3%. But it makes, when I read it, it makes sense to me because of your continuous improvement plan and how you have that across the district.
Monica?
Hello. So Lori and Tracy, is this something that the administration is interested in having, and do you believe that is a tool that is useful to you in the evaluation and work that you do with your staff?
And it's not unusual in executive contracts across the state. When we did the comparison study with the Gallagher Group, I think that was one of the comparators that is in many contracts across the state for executive levels.
And losing that will just bring us back to negotiations and something unlikely for you, right? Or
I don't know that it would change much of the process. I think we'd have to, obviously, if that's not something that the board feels like you are able to support, we would have to go back and relook at them.
but it will affect the way that you are working currently with your staff.
I don't know about that. We would go, I think goal setting is an important part of professional growth and education. So regardless, we would be doing rigorous goal setting, monitoring, and evaluation.
Do you feel under your leadership that that has taken a step up now than before? Sorry. Just wondering. I don't know how it is, but was before. Do you? I don't want to discount what was done in the past, but is it different now?
It is, I would say that the ways that it is different is that it is, all of our goals are framed around the strategic plan, and then the goals drive the continuous improvement plans for each department. So I would say that that structure and that kind of alignment is different, yes.
I guess my question would be then, is there a way, goals need to be measurable. And then you meet your goal or you don't meet your goal, and you get your bonus based on whether or not you met your goal. And if we're designing goals that aren't measurable, or if we're designing goals that are strategic but not measurable, then we're just going to pay it out. And if that's what we want from administrators, I mean, if that's our goal, I don't have any issue with that. My goal, my question is, why are we tying that to a bonus? And if it's because every other district does it, well, maybe 742 can be different, and we don't have to do everything that everybody else does. And I just feel like when it comes to contracts, I like nice, tight, easy to read contracts that are not ambiguous in any way, shape, or form. And when we start increasing 1% here and 3% over here and then some over here, we talk about all these different numbers, but we're never really talking about what's the cost of the contract and where are we going and what are we doing with it. Now, if we're setting goals, however, that are very specific, I mean, I've been in retail my entire life, almost always had a bonus, and it was always tied to, say, sales gains. If you have a 10% sales gain, you get a 1% increase. If you have a 15%, you get a 2% increase. Those types of goals are very, very measurable, and if you meet them or exceed them, then you get paid your bonus. But I just feel in these here, we set goals that are truly goals of the district. They're worthy, they're great, but they're not measurable. And then we just pay the bonus. And why do we do that? And then we're putting more emphasis on it when I'd rather see it go from 2% to 1%, and put 2% over on the schedule. It just doesn't, to me, it doesn't make sense. And it makes me question why we're doing it and the purpose of why we're doing it, and what else am I missing is the first thing I think. Do I have to now go back and take this and read page by page by page by page and compare to see what else has changed in there? And it just, to me, I feel like it's a shell game. That's how I feel, and I don't say that I'm not attacking anyone or accusing anyone of impropriety. I'm just saying that I feel like it becomes kind of a shell game, and that I don't know what I'm looking at. So my yes vote is simply on the confidence of the people that are working here.
Monica, and then Natalie.
So I wanted to speak to all in that concerned. I like to advocate right now for approving the contract as it is at this point, and maybe suggesting that you look at this during these 2 years, or having another conversation with the superintendent to maybe look how is this working, and see how modifications can be done for next contract. I don't see you having any objection with how the money is being expended, or having any objection with the money that is put there. Seems like it's more an administrative objection of how this works, and that's why I'm suggesting that we approve this as it is right now, instead of delaying the process more to go back to negotiations.
Natalie, did you have anything to add?
Yes. And I like what Monica said. Like, I think this is a larger conversation. And the thing I always wonder about bonuses this is the only group that gets it. Yeah, it gets bonuses, which is very normal. Nobody's doing anything weird here. Executives get bonuses. That's usually the way it is. But I wonder what, I know as a teacher, when there's stuff, when I used to be a teacher and things were brought up like in national politics, like, well, we should tie student achievement to teacher bonuses, and that's absolutely ridiculous. But if we don't want to do that for some of our workforce in education, perhaps moving away from even the performance pay for CEOs and just putting it on the salary increase might be an interesting conversation to have. I don't know what that would, do for salaries or for when you get it or for, anything like that, but I like Monica's idea of this is a normal thing we've always done and we're going to continue to do it. Maybe for this, if we all say yes, for the next 2 years, and then take a look at, is this the right thing to go do going forward? So Monica, way to go. I like that idea. But, right, so we are expanding it, but also the difference, being in so many different of the bargaining groups that I have been in the past, how many years have I been on this board? 6 years, 5 years, whatever it is. They all have their little intricacies, like we want this instead of this, and then like Tracy tries to make it all, similar, but definitely I don't think contracts are the same. Because some people want more on the, what am I trying to say, Tracy? There's the steps and lanes, but then some want more longevity pay and some want, so this is just the intricacy of this contract specifically,
And
to
I
me
would-
anyway.
I would just clarify with this group that this is not a bargaining unit. These are individual contracts. The board was provided with all of those striking lines as well. And a reminder that the board approved these terms with the increase in the performance pay for the 5 contracts that were approved earlier this summer. And the goal was to just be equitable across the executive group. So I take the board's feedback seriously, and I think Dr. Putnam would be happy to consider that change of structure in these contracts, after this 2-year period. I think that's a very reasonable request. And I think the recommendation that came from the superintendent was based on the conversation she had with the Gallagher Group that did comparisons and looked at our contracts against other contracts in the state, and it seemed reasonable at the time, and the board approved those earlier contracts. So for this evening's approvals, I think the equity would favor approving these for this contract period and then directing the superintendent to reconsider that for subsequent years.
Can I ask, Tracy, was that brought to our attention?
It was. The board was provided with the striking lines of all of those contracts in a summary.
In this format?
We did not have this kind of a meeting. The board chose to put those on the consent agenda.
So it wasn't really, okay, gotcha.
I think nobody is in disagreement about the dollar amount, and that's what's important here, is that we're all nodding our heads saying, yes, we agree to the dollar amounts, whether we're, saying, putting it over here or over there. That's a whole nother conversation. And I wouldn't call these bonuses, I would call them performance pay, and to me, there is a little bit of a difference there. And I think what we're asking is to have that measurable. Or just inquiring, how is it measurable? So, but that's a whole nother conversation that I think people would be interested in learning more about. Okay, so any other further discussion? Good. Zach, can you call vote? I'm pretty sure I have a motion and a second, and then Natalie started with discussion, so go ahead.
Monica Segura Schwartz,
Yes.
Scott Andresen,
No.
Al Dahlgren,
No.
Zach Dorholz, yes, Shannon Haas.
Yes. Thank you, Tracy. Okay, then we are moving on 2, review of the 2024 Board of Education Legislative Platform presented by Board Member Zach Dorholt. Just pointing out tonight that this is a discussion item. We added one more rotation in here, so discussing it tonight and then hoping that it'll be an action item on December 6th when we come back. I believe it's December 6th. So Zach, you're up.
Okay, well, I think what you have in front of you is kind of a rewrite with some of the suggestions from our last board meeting. And of course, this format, we can make this look much better down the road. And I also got the numbers from Amy on the EL numbers, which we wanted to point out as well. So hopefully this makes it a little more clear and concise to whom we're delivering it to, with some of the verbiage changes and just restructuring for better flow, really, including additional information. So that being said, open to other suggestions, comments, concerns, edits. You should all have a MS Word copy I sent you as well.
Scott, and then Natalie, are you raising your hand? Okay. Go ahead, Scott.
Okay. I hate abbreviations. Instead of EL, can we put English language? Just EL. I mean, some legislators will know what we're talking about and others won't. Just English language, spell it out. Abbreviations confuse people if they're not familiar with the terminology.
Okay. What is, and then down below it's ELL. Which one is it now? Is it E? Yeah.
That was what my question was, actually.
Yeah.
I know we do multilingual, but that's not what the state does, but I can't remember if the state does EL or ELL. So just to check what the state knows versus what we know.
Double L?
ELL? Oh, okay.
Okay.
They got to catch up. ML, people.
Well, it might change. Okay, other questions, comments? Monica, Al?
I think that is much clear now. I like the format and like how I like that it's one pager. And I like the numbers to be included. So I think that's a great job. Thank you.
Hoping we can still keep it on one page, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Al?
Zach, the one line in here there's a couple of lines in here that I worked with a little bit, and one of them was these demographics prevent challenges to our district that make it difficult to provide a quality education for all our students, or without adequate funding. And I'm wondering if it wouldn't, I hate to say challenges that make it difficult to provide.
This was a tough one to verbiage. It really was.
Yeah.
I get hung up on this too, so I'm definitely.
I was wondering if something like these demographics create unique challenges to our district that require additional resources to provide quality education for all our students. Or provide unique challenges or additional challenges or something. I mean, it's a challenge, not a. Well, that instead of that make it difficult to provide a quality education, to say that it require additional resources to provide a quality education or to
Yeah.
provide a.
What I'm saying is that I like to keep the point that we don't need additional funding, or that we're not asking for additional funding. We are asking for what they ought us.
So first read with that adjustment could just be these demographics present unique challenges to our district, or These demographics present unique challenges
To our district.
to our district that make it, yeah. That's just changing.
That make
Adding a word.
imperative to provide quality education, the make imperative, maybe, the,
Well, if we say that they create unique challenges to our district that require additional resources to provide a quality education, and saying that we do provide a quality education, it requires additional resources to do that, versus saying it makes it difficult to do that, which is kind of saying we don't provide a quality education.
Instead of quality, can we say equitable?
Equitable or adequate?
Well, I mean, quality, I mean, equitable education compared to other districts in the state is what I'm saying. We're saying we need more because our numbers are more, not because we want additional funding. We want adequate funding. And if you don't give us adequate funding, our students are not getting an equitable education compared to other
Then
districts.
you're saying they require adequate resources to provide an equitable education.
Yeah,
Which is a true statement.
yes. Amen.
so how is that?
Adequate resources.
Create
And-
unique challenges to our district that require adequate resources to provide a equitable education for all of our students.
I like that.
Demographics present unique challenges to our district are what?
They require adequate resources to provide an equitable education for all of our students.
I'll say adequate funding.
I'm lost.
These demographics present a unique challenge into our district that required additional resources, what you said? That requires adequate funding. That requires adequate funding.
To provide an equitable education for all of our students.
Any other sentences that people have comments about?
I wanted to take
Are we,
I do not like the equitable word. Thinking, give me 1 second.
Well, it's technically true. We need additional resources to cover mandates in order for our education to be equitable.
to all
without-
students.
To all students. Without,
I know it's true.
in order to do that, we need to, yeah.
So what if we just explain it, so to provide the same level of education to all of the students?
Without the adequate funding, we're not able
Yeah,
to
yeah,
provide
so the
equitable.
adequate funding is right, I'm saying at the end, so these
But-
demographics present unique, sorry. Michael?
I was just gonna say, it is equitable, but it's not same, it's not the same. Equitable in the sense that, you know, EL students and special ed students have more mandates, therefore need more money for the programming. So it's not the same, but it's equitable.
They don't need more money because they have the money. The special ed, not the EL.
Right, we're giving them, yeah.
Our
Right, but
district
at the,
is- we're talking
at the
district
expense of
level.
regular education.
So what my suggestion was, these demographics present unique challenges to our district that, oh, I don't understand my writing. That's something adequate funding to provide the same level of education to all the students. That's required, I think.
I think the whole point here is that it's not the same level of education that everybody, it's not equal education, it's equitable education because everybody is getting what they need. I don't know another way to say that, besides equitable.
It's a loaded word. That was my issue with it.
It's
but
a loaded word.
I'm okay with
a loaded
whatever
word, you're
we
right.
decide. And if it's gonna have another reading, maybe you can think about it.
I'm good with it.
I'm good with that line. I have a couple other.
Yes,
lines.
please. Okay.
What do you I'm lost that. Did you write that down? Did somebody else? I don't have that.
Do you want to read it one more time, or do you have it written down on yours? No?
No, I don't.
Okay.
So what I
Um,
have
That
written down
changed.
is not completely, it's not complete. That's what I'm saying.
Require, these demographics
Create unique challenges.
for our district that require, did we say adequate resources?
Adequate funding
Adequate funding to provide an equitable education for all of our students.
Equitable.
equitable education to all of our students.
For all of our students.
For all of our students.
Okay, next to Zach are just shortening it up a little bit. But in the background, despite recent efforts during the 2023 legislative session, which we are incredibly grateful for, I would just strike that, and I would say, despite recent efforts during the 2023 legislative session, Minnesota is still short of fulfilling its obligation. It feels like pandering to me when I read it. I don't know that in a legislative position, we are appreciative for it, but I don't know that we need to say that there. That's not we're asking for more funding. We're not expressing gratitude.
And it's not more funding, it's they've underfunded it, so
I wanted to be thankful.
be thankful in person.
I do think that being in the other side, I mean, do you think that it will soften up if you receive it this and say, okay, well, just got this funding and it's making a point. I do think that we want it to be a little bit soft, because we could demand as much as we wanted or as much as we feel we need it, but still people on the other side listening to this.
Okay, so we're saying thank you now, thanks, and then crossing that line off.
I like it.
The last piece the last line that I questioned was the very last line. Now is the time with a continued projected state budget surplus, and I don't know that we know that or are the people who can say that, but should it just be now is the time to plug this gap and own up to Minnesota's promise for all of our students and take out the piece on. The legislature should tell us if they have a continuing funding surplus.
The last one said yes.
The last
formal
one did.
February, so we won't know till then.
Right.
I don't think we have agreement going back to the which we are incredibly grateful for cross out. Okay. So we need to talk about that over.
I thought about crossing it out simply just to save space, because it's still an assertive sentence, despite recent efforts during the 2023 legislative session. The fact is Minnesota is still short. So we're acknowledging their efforts and also saying
Right.
still short. So it's assertive.
Yeah,
Yeah. Looks like Scott, you're nodding your head too, yeah, okay. Okay,
I'm fine. So the last one, I'm fine.
and then the
also,
last one.
taking out half of it.
Yeah, and I just, And I don't know that we want to have the whole thing hang in the balance of a projected budget surplus. We want to fix it
Either way.
surplus or not, right?
Yeah, with or without, we're asking.
I know what you're saying. You know, that
So now is the time,
Like the money's there, we should use it for this.
now's the time to plug this gap.
just go right to plug this gap.
fill this gap on up to Minnesota. Okay,
Okay,
I'm good.
good work. Probably saved one line there, but then,
That'll
Used
give us
it up.
enough room to put the ELL numbers. in.
yes.
Still fit on one page.
Any other discussion?
Can always change the margins.
They're
They're looking
narrow
pretty
already.
thin.
We can, yeah, it's easy.
All right, thanks, everybody. So we'll bring that back for final approval then, next board meeting. Thanks, Zach.
Some of the older versions of Word, and I don't, maybe it's still in there, but I don't know where to look. But there was an editing function where you could go in and edit, and you could tell it how much you wanted to reduce. Like if you wanted to reduce by 20%, and you click the button, and the Word would go in and revise your paragraphs and the wording within your paragraphs to cut out words and make you more efficient. And it was really good. But I can't find that now, so either it was a more expensive version or an older version or something.
That might have been back when Microsoft Works was still a thing.
Could be.
I looked that up on Netscape.
All right, moving along here. Next up, we have the superintendent's report presented by Dr. Lori Putnam, superintendent.
Thank you very much, Chair Haas. Just a couple items this evening. First, I just want to update everybody in the community that our school resource officers are back, that we have put into place all of the pieces that we had removed, including access to our offices and other vital security measures. So very pleased to have them back and very grateful for the support of this board, our community, and our St. Cloud Police Department during that interim as we navigated the challenging times. And we look forward to seeing what's to come in the next legislative session as that gets completely figured out. And just want to give a quick update on our November 22nd Professional Learning Day. Just a reminder to our families who might be listening that that is a no contact day for students. So students and families can begin that Thanksgiving break up a bit earlier, and our licensed staff will be in person. And we have a full day professional learning. We actually, I think it's so incredible the work that our team does. We have 75 separate groups of employees, and our professional learning is targeted for each of those different groups. So I just want to give a couple examples so that our community knows how we are using this incredibly valuable time, because we very much treasure the time that we have with our students in person. So our secondary special education team will be learning some about the science of reading, because as you know, they were not able to be included in the letters training for the K-5. They were not part of that state law. So we are making sure that we still provide some of that foundational learning around how the science of reading for our teams. Then you get down to our Phi Ed and health teachers, 612 and PE health and DAPE teachers will be learning either CPR first aid so that they're all certified and licensed, or they can do lifeguard training. So some very targeted learning for them. Our content teams will be, as secondary, will be learning together, language arts, social studies, math. Our K-12 music team, if you recall last spring, we had Walker West come up and present. They were the musicians from the cities who are partnering with us to really make sure that our music offerings are engaging and really meeting the needs of this our school community here, and so they'll be working with Walker West. So those are just some quick examples. Our elementary teams are spending most of their time working on the iReady math curriculum, FastBridge, the new assessment, so that we make sure that we are giving time for our staff to learn the new assessment tools, which then of course can help drive their instruction and assessment. So I just want to give people a quick heads up. We certainly appreciate the work. Hours and hours go into this kind of day. So we want to appreciate the work of our instructional teams, our directors, our coordinators, and of course, our assistant superintendents and Donna Roper, who, by the way, is visiting, or she is with our non-licensed support staff who are being awarded this evening. We were not able to go, but a shout out to all of our non-licensed staff who were awarded the education awards from this region. So congratulations to them as well.
Okay, thank you. And then we have the Board of Education Standing Committee reports. I believe we have 3 reports tonight. Achievement, Integration, and Equity Committee, Chair Natalie Copeland.
Yes, thank you, Chair Haas. We met today. We are continuing our broad discussion on what makes a well-rounded student. We continued that discussion, focusing on whose voices we need to hear in this discussion, how we can reduce and eliminate barriers to student success, and how to reach our ultimate goal of all of our students graduating from high school. Next time, we will look at other students who currently have a portrait of a graduate rolled out in their district and see what they're up to. We also talked a bit about the World's Best Workforce and Achievement and Integration Plan. We reviewed what's going to be coming to the school board presentation at our next meeting, the first meeting of December somehow. And then we are not meeting in December. Our next meeting is Wednesday, January 17th.
Thank you. And then Board of Finance and Audit Committee, Chair Al Dahlgren.
Friday. First item on the agenda was a joint grant with the City of St. Cloud. And Gary shared information about a grant that we're working on with the City of St. Cloud for Safe Routes to School project. The project is to create a safer environment for students walking to South Junior High School from the east. The only controlled intersection for students to cross is about 3 blocks north of 13th Street, which would increase the time they spend getting to school. The city would improve sidewalks, bike paths, pedestrian crossings, etc., up to the eastern property line of South, and that's over by the baseball field, if anyone's wondering where that would be. The grant would also include adding walking paths, trail markings, lighting, etc. on our property so that students can get to the front of the school building safely. Our part of the grant would be 20% of the cost of the work on our property, which would be about $32,000. Gary brought this to Finance Committee looking for feedback on the project, and we all agreed that we should move forward with applying for the grant, and I believe we're applying for it jointly with the city. Is that correct, Gary? Next, we did the second item on the agenda was the 2022-2023 audit, and Nancy Schulzenberg reviewed the 2022-2023 audit results, which were presented to the board tonight. Then following that, we had a Summer Projects 2024 update. First was the Apollo Roofing Project. Amy reported that part of the roof at Apollo's B Wing was done last summer, but we still need to do the rest of the B Wing and the A Wing. Total roofing project needing to be done is about 137,000 square feet, and Roof Spec is concerned that the size of this project may eliminate local bidders or may not be able to be completed within one summer period. Roof Spec is suggesting the project be done in phases, with the first completing B-Wing and then doing A-Wing as a second phase. We'll bid B-Wing and see what the bidding environment looks like, and either do a second bid for A-Wing in January and postpone A-Wing to summer 2025. I think that was on tonight's agenda, also the call for bids? Yes, for the B-Wing. Parking lots, we'd originally included budget for single-use restrooms at North and South in the summer of 2024 LTFM projects. However, this is not an allowable LTFM expense until July 1st. which isn't enough time to get the projects completed this summer, next summer. So the projects were postponed until summer 2025. So instead, we are looking at using these available LTFM funds for parking lot improvements, which would come forward to bid in the next few months. The district is currently reviewing where the greatest needs are for parking lot replacement, and the committee suggested looking at the north lots at Apollo as a priority. Then the McKinley addition bids for the project came in over budget by about $350,000, mostly due to higher than anticipated costs with the new storm shelter requirements. We're still sorting out the bids, and they'll be brought to the school board on November 15th for approval. There's still some work scopes that we need to get quotes for, but once we have final pricing and we know the additional amount needed, we will come to the board to approve funding for the additional amount. And then we also had one last piece where we discussed moving our meeting times from 8:30 a.m. on Fridays till 1 p.m. on Fridays, and agreed to move the December 15th meeting to 1 p.m. The committee meeting schedule for 2024 will be renewed after the board reorg meeting in January once committee members have been appointed. That was it for Finance Committee on Friday.
Thank you. And then we have Personnel and Negotiations Committee Chair Monica Segura Schwartz.
Thank you. So we met November 14. We were Shannon Haas, Superintendent Putnam, and Tracy, Doctor, and Tracy Bonnet. The administration reviewed tentative agreements and costing sheets for the St. Cloud Administrators Associations and Clerical Unit. If ratified by the response members, the SCAA contract will be presented to the board for approval today. But, and the clerical contract will be presented for approval on December 20th. And that's the one that we did, yes. The other topic was the superintendent presented her recommendations for changes in executive contracts and costing for those proposed changes. We reviewed them and we didn't see any issue with that. The committee recommended sending the contract changes full board for review and moving proposals forward for board approval at this meeting. And that was it.
Thank you. Okay, then moving on, we have future agenda items. December board meeting and work session topics will include the summary report for the 22-23 World's Best Workforce and Achievement Integration Plans, approval of the date, time, and location of the 2024 reorganizational meeting and first board meeting of 2024, approval of the 2024 Board of Education legislative platform, teacher workforce development, demographics of workforce, and schools update. At this time, does any board member wish to suggest a future agenda item? Okay. So then I'm looking for a motion to adjourn tonight's Board of Education meeting. And do I have a second? A motion by Natalie, a second by Scott. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Meeting is adjourned. It is 8:28 p.m. Have a good night. Thank you for watching. We'll be back December 6th.